I would like to dedicate this humble presentation in memory of my good friend, Rosenfield, who passed away recently, who has encouraged me to do this research, who was a former professor at the Harvard University, and also Robert Goebel, whom I have never met in my life, but with whom I corresponded for a long time. These two scholars have made a lot of contribution to understand the presence of Scythians, Parthians, and mainly Kushans, and especially for the coinage. We cannot do anything without the corpus that Robert Goebel has put forward, that I have put it here in the blue color. So this is my humble dedication in memory of these two great scholars. Last time I was talking to you about the Greek successors of Alexander the Great in Bactria and then in India. That means in Gandhara, Rakosha, and Parapamisidae. And towards the end, I'll be talking again about the last Indo-Greek kings, but mainly concentrating on Indo-Scythians, Indo-Parthians, and Kushans. So it is in the frame in the purple color. When we talk about the different successions of dynasties over the kings, the monogram pattern is extremely important. So when we talk about the Indo-Scythians, we'll be talking about Maoris and Asis, but in between, the Indo-Greeks were able to reconquer some of the lost territories in Gandhara. And when Nazis came to power, there were no Greeks in Gandhara, but they went to eastern Punjab towards Sagala, and they were in power for about 20 CE. So to give you a very rough idea about these kingdoms, you have the Yuezhi, who later became the Kushans, and then the Indo-Scythians and the Indo-Parthians. I'll be mainly concentrating on coins and also sculptures. But when we talk about the Indo-Scythians, it is very important to understand their culture. One of the best places, there are many in the last 20 years, people have found in Altai and also in Pakistan today and also in Afghanistan, a lot of Scythian tombs. The best known one is called Tilia Tepe, which is in northern Afghanistan. It was excavated by the famous proto-historian. He's, of course, with a Greek name, but Russian archaeologist Victor Saryanidhi, who passed away recently as well. He excavated the mound, which is known as Golden Hill, in 1978, just before the Soviet invasion. Although he is a specialist of Bronze Age, this was not his specialty, and he himself was surprised to see this. So these are few photographs we have of the period when Saryanidhi was excavating this famous site. But it is thought that the site belonged to Scythians. Several of the artifacts are highly consistent with the Scythian origin, such as the royal crown or polybed decorated daggers discovered in the tombs. Several of the defuncts exhibited ritual deformation of the skull, a practice which is well documented among Central Asian nomads of the period. No evidence survives to suggest how the people buried at Tilia Tepe died. Perhaps they were victims of sickness or the harsh Afghan environment. It is also possible that the women were sacrificed upon the death of the chieftain. According to Herodotus, as you know, famous Greek historian, the Herodotus description of the burial practices of Scythian nomads, a man did not go alone into the hereafter, but was accompanied by members of his household. So they found the tomb of the prince and his wives or the princesses around it. So Hoard is a collection of about 20,000 gold ornaments that was found in 6 graves, 5 women and 1 man, with extremely rich jewelry dated to around the 1st century BCE. Altogether, several thousand pieces of fine jewelry were recovered, usually made of gold, turquoise, and lapis lazuli. The ornaments include coins, necklaces, set with gems, belts, medallions, and crowns. I am not going to show you all the 20,000, but at least the main ones. So here is one of the princesses, and there were thousands, I mean hundreds of appliques. As you can see, there were these are appliques of her garment. Again, another one with jewelry, and also the in the headdress. And here we have a figure of Athena. Of course, it's a Greek motif and like the Erotos, but in a Scythian context. Again, another princess with a battle axe in the hand. And here is the prince. In his tomb, they found these objects, which are, of course, used for what we call akinakes. It's almost like a dragon with these symbolic motifs, like the swastika, the sun symbol, which was also popular in the Greek world and the Scythian world. Among the objects found there, I would like to draw your attention to this Aphrodite with the wings, but also something like a tilaka here, which is quite strange in a Greek context, which is not strange in an Indian context. And also this is, of course, a pair of hooks depicting Greek warriors. They are dressed like Greek warriors, holding a spear and a shield and the sword, and also the armaments. I will come to that in a moment. And also, again, a pair of hooks depicting Dionysius, the god of love and ecstasy, with his wife Ariadne. And you can see they are seated on a panther, which is the vehicle of Dionysius, with his young wife, crowned by a Nike, the victory. And here we have a pan holding a cup, rather a jar, so that the Ariadne can take the wine and give to Dionysius to drink. And here we have another belt with again a depiction of Dionysius seated inside saddle on a panther. And these are two decorative pieces of Eros or Cupid or Erotos riding dolphins. It's also quite interesting. And also to show the Chinese inspiration, these are the carts or the chariots driven by dragons. And you can see huge amount of Chinese inspiration. So this gives you an idea about the Scythian culture in this area, which is enormous. There are so many tombs found everywhere in Central Asia and also northern part of Pakistan. When we study the coinage of the Indo-Scythians and Indo-Parthians, the best book to refer for all the coin types is the one by Robert Senior, in 3 volumes, and he added another one, the 4th volume. And of course, you can go on adding more because you find so many new types, especially with the Scythian coinage. Of course, people like, as I explained to you last time, there are controversies about the chronology. I don't want to enter into that. Because, for example, Senior thinks there was only one Nazis, but others, well, not everyone, but many others think there were 2 Nazis. Nazis 1 and Nazis 2. In spite of that, he has done a wonderful work, very scientific, of categorizing or cataloging the coins of the Parthians and the Scythians. The presence of invaders, including the Yuezhi, the Scythians or Sakas, and the Parthians, compelled the Greeks to abandon progressively their positions. Around the first quarter of the 1st century BCE, a Scythian prince named Maois occupied Taxila. He is thought to be the King Moga, mentioned in the copperplate inscription of Patika, found at Taxila in 1862, dated to the 5th day of the month of Panimus of the 78th year of an unspecified era of the great King Moga the Moes. So here we have, again, don't misunderstand him as Shiva. He's not Shiva, he's Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, with a trident in the hand, with his right leg on a monster or the sea monster. And with the legend very clearly, I'll come to that. And on the other side, you have a Vriksha Devata or Devataki, in the middle of the trees. So here is another silver coin where you can see on the obverse Zeus, on the reverse Nike holding the reed. So we see clearly, we can see starting from here, Basiliontos, Megalou Azu. So here we have Basilion Megalou Azu. Sorry, this Basilion. And here you have Rajasa, Mahatasa, Moasa. And also another coin, there are so many coin types. I'm just showing some which have some relationship with the with my talk today when we talk about the iconography. On the reverse, you have Zeus making a gesture, seated, the supreme god, holding a scepter here. And here we have a chariot, a biga, a chariot driven by two horses. Helios is standing with a chariot. So it's a quite exceptional coin. And then I can remember one of you asked me the question about this coin, which has a very interesting legend. Basilios Theotropho Machine. The first coin was published by Georges Lorider in French when he bought the coin for the French cabinet in the National Library. Although it looks like sometimes like a eta, sometimes like a nu, it should be read like a mu, which is M, so it's machine. It's very difficult to see the origin of this queen. We think she was the queen of Maoris. So Lorider came to the conclusion that she should be a Persian. We can't find any Indian origin to that, but it's quite interesting to see a name again, once again, of his wife written there. So other important thing is, so the legend reads like this in this sense, and this is my answer. And also the use of, instead of the normal sigma, you have a lunate sigma, like the C in the Latin alphabet. And also you have also the Omicron. Instead of the round Omicron, we have the square Omicron on these coins. And also this coin is quite interesting. On the reverse, it's very difficult to say who is, but I think it's almost like a Taiki, mixture of Taiki and the wind goddess here. And here you have Zeus seated. And what is interesting is this figure here. So I consider him as one of the earliest depictions of a Purusha. As you know, in Hindu iconography, we will see in a moment, there are, Vajra Purusha, Sankha Purusha, and Danta Purusha. And here we have some sort of a combination of the Greek tradition and the Indian tradition, the Vajra, or the thunderbolt, the weapon par excellence of Zeus, is given a personification, right? And he appears as a Vajra Purusha on this coin. And also quite interestingly, a hoard was found containing 17 bronze coins at Amlukdara near Barikot in the Middle Swat Valley in Pakistan, first published by R.C. Senior in 2006, brought to light 8 coins of Artemis the Goddess, eliminating once and for all the doubts some numismatists had regarding the authenticity of the first coin of the same series published by Senior. As you know, in the numismatic world, whenever you publish a new coin, people jump and say this is a fake. So I could publish the whole hoard without any problem, and it was published in Numismatica Chronica, and it's definitely there are 8 coins in different, and they have a legend which is quite interesting. And among the other coins, there were also the coin types of Maoris, like this one on the obverse Heracles, and a lion on the reverse, because it has a relationship. It is the lion of Nemea that Heracles killed. And also here we have Artemis, the goddess of hunt, and then a bull, the Indian bull with a bull. And then here we have Selene, or the lunar goddess, with stars and the lunate, the croissant here, and then Nike and the coin that I showed you. But interesting thing is that these coins with a different legend. So on the obverse, we have Artemis, the goddess of, which is a normal coin of Artemidoros, known with this portrait on his coin. Artemis standing, facing, head slightly to right, with bow slung over the left arm here, drawing an arrow from a quiver with the right hand. So she has the arrows behind and she's drawing an arrow. And on the reverse, we have a bull walking to right. And then this is the reading I proposed. Rajasa Moasa Putrasa Sha Sa Artemidarasa. Archie Senior proposed Rajaji Rajasa Moasa Putrasa Cha Artemidarasa and said King of Kings Mois and his son Artemidas. The confusion caused by Sa, certainly not Cha, made me to seek the advice from Dr Osmund and Harry Falk, and both proposed the following deciphering. Rajati Rajasa Moasa Putrasa Sa Artemidarasa. But the translation, I got two translations. One is by Osmund. He said, of King of Kings and son of Maois, Artemidarus. So Artemidarus became the son of Maois, who is son of one of the Scythian kings. And then the Harifa proposed of king over kings, because he's Rajati Raja, Maois, and the son of Artemidarus, saying that Maois had a political pact with the son of Artemidarus. So for the moment, I'm still hesitant, but it shows something which is very important, that there was no bloody war against Scythians against the Greeks. I mean, they had this marriage, interfamily relationship, and the political power was transformed in a peaceful way. So the Greeks, under the leadership of Apollodorus II, were subsequently able to regain these lost territories for a short period. Mois was succeeded by three kings with the Greek names Telephus, Apollodorus II, and Hippostratus. So here we have Maois, and I will tell you why I consider them as the successors. And also we have got the monogram pattern. Telephus takes 2 monograms of Maois, Apollodorus takes 3 and create new one, and Hippostratus create 1, 2, and then takes 1. And when Narcissus came to power, I mean, another Indo-Scythian took 2 of the monograms of Hippostratus and 1 monogram of Apollodorus II. From this moment onwards, the Indo-Greeks were pushed towards East Punjab, and I believe they were somewhere in Sagala, not very far from India. So these are the two kings. One is Apollodorus. They continue the same tradition of depicting the portrait of the king on the obverse, and the reverse type, Athena Alcidamus, with the shield in the hand and with the thunderbolt. On Hippostratus, there are many other two other coin types. One is a cavalryman or a horseman. It could be also the king on horseback. And the Telephus had very interesting coinage. This coin is quite interesting. Here we have Helios and the Selene, that means the sun god and the moon goddess. And also this serpentiform monsters on the obverse. Somebody asked me also a question about this coin, whether it is Brahma. As I said, it is not Brahma, it is a Brahmin, an ascetic, doing some Agni Puja, and you can see in front of fire, holding something in the hand and with a twig in the over the shoulder. I will show you in Gandharan art, Brahma is shown with, I mean, of course, he should have 5, but lost 1, and he should have 4 on the sculptures. He is normally depicted with 4 identical heads. And the other interesting is that Telephus, this is overstrike of Telephus over the coin of Archebius. And then we have Asis, who took over the Gandhara area. Around 48 BC, the Indo-Scythian Asis first became king of the provinces of Gandhara and Western Punjab. The inscription from Bunel, published by Harry Falk, is of immense importance in the study of the Indo-Scythian and Indo-Parthian periods. Contrary to a common belief that the succession of Indo-Greeks, Indo-Scythians and Indo-Parthians were based on bloody battles, this new inscription points to a peaceful transition of power. So this inscription, of course, every time I give the references to the articles that I mention, or the books, and also the coin of Artemis with Maoris is also another proof to say that transition was done in a peaceful way. The reason why I say is that why Arsis came after Apollodorus, because there are many overstrikes. These are two that I published, first in 1989 and recently in 2008, where Arsis overstriking the coins of Apollodorus II. So if you have questions, these are the drawings done by my friend François Uri, where you can see this is the type of Arsis, and this is the undertype of Apollodorus, and this is the type of Arsis, this is the undertype of Apollodorus. So not only the monogram pattern, but also the overstrike pattern gives us a chronological sequence for these kings. So here we are with Indo-Scythian Arsis, whom I date from 48 to 20. Don't be surprised if you see 57, which was the old Arsis era, which was considered as equivalent to Vikram era. As I told you last time, with the contribution made by Harry Falk, now we are almost certain that the Arsis era begins in 48 BCE. Here is a coin just have a look at it. This is a new obverse type. I'll come to that. Look at the reverse. Reverse is almost like the Menander coins. The only difference is the legend. Here we have Maharajasa, Rajata, and here we have Ayasa. Again, these are some coin types with the Nike and Zeus holding a Nike. And here we have another one, same thing with Athena or Athena Alkidemos, and Zeus frontally facing, holding the thunderbolt. And after Arsis, this is what I believe, and it is not the point of view of my good friend Robert Senior. It doesn't matter really, because these controversies will go on for some time. If he is right, I'll be very happy to say he was right. For the moment, I think there was Asilisis in between. And here you have Basileus, Megalu, Asilisu, and the legend Maharajasa, Rajatirajasa, Mahatasa, Asilisasa. So we know the name of the king who issued it. And here is a unique type of Asilisis. And then this coin, of course, there is one in the British Museum, and recently I saw one in a private collection, where you have Asilisis on horseback on the obverse, and on the reverse we have Gajalakshmi, Lakshmi standing on a lotus flower, and two elephants standing on two lotus flowers, pouring water over the head of the goddess. So what we call the Gajalakshmi or Abhisheka Lakshmi. One of the ways, like G.K. Jenkins, the British numismatist, said, all the coins depicting the king on the obverse holding a spear belong to Arsis I, and all the other coins depicting the horseman or the king on the horse holding the whip should be of Arsis II. It is not very easy to differentiate the types. But I still believe that he was right, although Bob Senior has a different view. Here there are some other coins of Arsis with the whip on the hand, and here we have Athena, and here we have Zeus holding the Nike. And also, there were so many other kings. I'm not going to talk about them because I have limited time. But if you believe my chronology, it's Asis the first, Asis the second, Vonones with Spaloharises, Vonones with Spaladagamis, Spalirises with Spaladagamis, Spalirises and with Asis. And on the other side, we have another Aperture Rajas, especially Richard Solomon and Harry Falk have done a lot of research on that. So we have another series of kings like Vijayamitra, Indravashu, Aspavarma, and Sasan, and other kings. So I come to this iconography. This obverse was not known. As I told you, the reverse type is normally copied from the Indo-Greeks, but not the obverse type. So we call it a king on horseback wearing a cataphractus, holding a spear or a whip. So where we come to what is called cataphractus. The commonest obverse type of the Indo-Scythian kings like Asis and others is the king on horseback wearing cataphractus and holding spear or a whip. So here we are, the king on horseback bears cataphractus, the basic element of the protective or the heavy armor of the Scythians and horsemen was scale armor. This heavy armor is composed of four major elements. So you have a breastplate and with a high collar, arm protectors here, skirt protecting the thighs, and a helmet. Ancient Greek and Latin writers who mention armor-clad cavalrymen of their respective periods. Cataphract, a form of heavy cavalry used in ancient warfare. It derived from the Greek kataphractos, which literally means fully protected. The term cataphract may also be in reference to armor worn by cataphractors. So we call the cataphractors the soldiers or a king wearing this kind of heavy armor. In this book, I discuss about the origin and the diffusion of the cataphractors, and also in the Smithsonian collection, also about the chronology. So if you look at the horsemen on coin, I isolated these horsemen from the coins with the Photoshop. You can see they don't wear the cataphractors. They are dressed like with a helmet and the breastplate and the skirt-like thing, like the Greek soldiers. And here is the Calliope, a woman, or Amazon, riding the horse. So they don't have that heavy armor. If you compare Philoxenus, who was a Greek king, with this one, and Asis the second, holding the whip, but wearing this type of heavy armor. And again, you can compare Hermias coin with Asis, and also the weapons they have. It's quite different. Here you have a spear, and also the bow, arc with the bow with the arrows. And normally on the Indo-Scythian coins, he has a spear or the whip. Whip is also a weapon. So just to give you an idea, here is a coin of Nicias, Indo-Greek king. This is how the king himself is like a Greek soldier. And normal Greek soldier would have a helmet, thorax or the breastplate, and then a skirt, a sword, and the boots. So this is normally a depiction of a Greek king. But if you look at the coins of Asis, it is quite different. And it's also different from the coins of the Indo-Parthians. I will discuss them in a moment. And they don't have the cataphractus. They have light dresses like this on this coin of Gondophares. And the Kushans, and this is of course a battle scene, where they have no heavy armor, but they have arms, right? And here you can see they have, two Kushans fighting. They have emptied all their arrows. Now they are fighting with their swords. And this is how the Kushans were dressed. So it was quite interesting, this hoard which I had access. We could study different aspects of this heavy armor, different types of helmet they wore, and also these arm protectors and other elements. So I'll come to that. The wearing heavy armor could go back to the 7th century BC. I'm showing you this in the Berlin Museum, where you can see Asurbanipal fighting with a lion, wearing this type of heavy armor. The cataphracti, heavily armed horsemen, usually fought in column order, holding their long spears against infantry. This would have been effective to a certain extent in making the infantry retreat. The noteworthy literary account on the use of cataphracti as an important element of the Greek army goes back to the time of Antiochus III. Antiochus had used cataphracti in his eastern campaigns as an effective offensive. The next note is Polybus, who narrates the Great View, a review of his troops by Antiochus IV in the spring of 166 BCE at Daphne. In this review, there were 1,500 cataphracti parading with 46,000 infantry and 9,500 cavalrymen. So this is a huge army. You may have seen the Knights of the medieval period movies. Most with this armor. It's very you can go on this horse with this heavy armor for 4 kilometers. The maximum distance they can run is about 500 meters. So the cataphracti were used to break the front of the cavalrymen or the army coming towards them. So that's quite interesting. I mean the infantry against the infantry. So this is one technique, one of the techniques of war those days. And if you go to China, I know all of you know about it. This is the Mausoleum of Emperor Qin. The discovery of the Terracotta Warriors in the Mausoleum of Chinese Emperor Qin of the 3rd century BC is of great importance. Some warriors, especially the generals, are depicted wearing heavy armor protecting the chest. So you can see them. So the question is whether they were made of metal or whether they were made of leather. The question arises, I think they were made of leather. But in China, in different places, they found the heavy armor, the helmet. You can see they were made of scale armor, and also the covering for the horsemen. And one of the most important discoveries were again made in Icano during the final campaign in 1978, just before the arrival of the Soviet army into Afghanistan. My colleague Franz Grunet and others excavated arsenal. The discovery of 4 pieces of armor made of iron at the north extremity of the west building of the arsenal excavated by the French archaeologists at Icano is of paramount importance to this study. They were found buried on top of the debris of burnt lats of which they were originally stored. But fortunately, they couldn't do a complete excavation. This is the only trench they could open before the arrival of the Soviet army. So this is the composition, what they found. So it's quite interesting. They have a breastplate and they have an arm protector. So you can move the arm, and also protector for the horse, and also the boots and the helmet. So the breastplate or the thorax made of rectangular scales going downwards with rounded low edges attached to each other by strings passing through the holes made for this effect, superimposed from the bottom to the top. The breastplate was held in place by leather straps passing over the shoulders, serving at the same time as pads for shoulder protectors, because you can't have an iron scale on your chest without a pad, against your chest, against your body. So it was a wonderful discovery to understand these soldiers. And also the excavations done by our colleague Pugachenkova, and also by the Uzbek archaeologist in Kalshayan. They found this palace. In this palace, you can very clearly see a warrior whose facial features resemble to those of Heraios, as depicted on the coins, holds a trophy, a high-colored cataphractus removed from his enemy. So you will understand this is it's colored baked clay, and here he is he is a Kushan or a UHG holding as a trophy the cataphractus. We can understand it. Here is the a coin of Heraios, where you can see the face is almost like his face. It doesn't mean he is Heraios, but he could be of the same clan. So here we have a battle scene. These are UHG who became Kushans, dressed very lightly. And here is a Scythian with a heavy arm. So this is the person who is being taken as a trophy by the Kushan. So here is the Kushan, and here is the trophy that he is holding. Because it's a cataphractus, you can understand the scale and the high collar. And also another excavations done in Otlat in this mountain. These are, of course, when I took the photographs, people were drying the grapes on the ground, on the mats. And this was a place, this was found. 5 bone plates, 2 big and 3 small, with different engravings were found in the burial ground of Odlat, situated 50 kilometers from Samarkand in Uzbekistan by Uzbekistan Art Expedition. So to explain it, these are all parts of the harnessing of an horse. These are the parts which harnessed the warrior and, which decorated the dress of the warrior and also the harness. These are the 5 elements which are very important, but I am concentrating on this one. So here is a fight between 2 Scythian clans with all kinds of arms. So you can see one is using a sword, giving a blow to the head. I can see the blood pouring. And here is a battle axe giving a blow to the head with the blood. And here is a person who is using a bow, the double bow, with the arrow. So you can see here, arrow has hit the eye. There is a very, very interesting description in the Greek literature. When you are completely covered with the armor, the only place you can wound is your eye, because you keep your eye open to see. So there is an instance where they aim the eye, and the cavalryman fell down. And also you can see, and here is the head of or skull of a person, that this was, of course, as a triumph over the enemy. You cut the head and you have it on your horse to show that we won the game. So different types of helmets that they are wearing, and also different types of arms that they are holding. It's a quite interesting one. And also different types of blows, and here is the head or the skull. So as I told you, these are the main elements of a cataphractus. And according to Plutarch's account, a long spear was the sole offensive weapon of the Parthian and Seleucid cataphracti. It is interesting to note the absence of coritus. Coritus is the place where you put the bow and the arrows on the coins of Asis and Arcelices, where the king is depicted holding a spear. On these coins, the king holds the spear with the right hand from the right side and then across the horse's neck, passing at the left cheek of the animal. In close combat, this position would have absorbed a part of the shock when the spear point touched the enemy. This was the only way of an armed rider without stirrups to use the spear as a shock weapon. So I'll come to that. The stirrups were not known in the Greek and Roman world until the 4th and the 5th century in the Greek world. So, today you can get your force when you have the stirrups and you can put your legs onto it. And here you have to have your own force, because you can't even hold to the reins, but you are holding the spear here. And again, you can see on the combat here with Alexander, with Porus, and also on the coins of Eucratides where you have Dioscuri. So it's a way of holding the spear. And here you have, of course, one of the elements is the whip. Whip is a long whip which can be used as a weapon. And also the composite bows, which is very powerful than the normal bow, and they use that too. And this is another plate from Odlat. And also they can use the battle axe, right? And these are the Bactrian camels that you find on the Asis coins. Bactrian camels, of course, compared to the other camels, Bactrian camels have two humps, and you can sit in between comfortably. It's like a cushion if you have tried it. So you won't fall easily. So without the stirrups, you can still sit on it. So here we have, people interpreted this, some say it's a cross, some say it's an axe, some say it's an ankusha, and others say it's a whip, but definitely it is a battle axe, like on the Orlat plate, which is also a deadly weapon. And also the two ribbons floating behind the head of the king on horseback are not the fanon or the diadems like on the coins of the Indo-Greeks. Diadems are the symbols of royalty. Only the king can have the diadem. As one may observe on some coins, two ribbons are shown jutting from the neck, right? Like here. On some of the coins, two ribbons in question give the impression that they are attached to the top of the extremity of a shaft fixed to the back of the breastplate. So it is quite possible that they may represent a banner on the pole fixed on the saddle as seen on the battle scene from the Orlat plate. And this one is quite interesting. And also when my colleague Francois Uri, who did the drawing, we were looking at it with a magnifying glass first, and then of course with the computer, we found that there was a fan. It's like a balloon that you you can see in the airports giving the directions of the wind. And if you go fast with this, it can give a sound effect to it. So it is one of the major discoveries of the Orlat plate that nobody ever noticed. So we learned from Aminius Marcellinus that the Persian mail-clad warriors' horses were protected by a leather covering, as the drawing from Duraropos show that the horse is completely covered with a coat of scale armor. However, the Indo-Scythian coins with the king on horseback, such coat of scale armor covering the body of the horse is not visible. But on Iconum, the horse was covered. This is a drawing of the Duraropos in Syria, and even the horse is covered. And also the other important element is the braiding horse tail and adding ornaments to cover them. It is a common practice even today, which gives a speed to the horse. And you can see here, and also you can see here, and this is from Pacific burials, where you can see it's very clearly like here, it is braided. But this is not found on the Indo-Greek horses. They are, natural tails. So it is another element of the Scythians. So the other thing, as I told you, the absence of stirrups. As I told you, in the Greek and Roman world, the horseman, you never see horsemen with the stirrups. But the history goes back to the earliest depiction of a stirrup is found in Sanchi number 2, which we normally date to second, if not the 1st century BCE. And there is a depiction here very clearly. The horseman here has the stirrups. And also my good friend K. Rajan found in his excavations in Kodimanel such stirrups as well. And also in the excavations done by Sir John Marshall in Taxila. So these are of course later ones. So the stirrups were there. The other interesting thing is when we talk about the inspiration of these cataphracts or the heavy armor, you can see here, this is of course the Mara's attack when the Bodhisattva sat under the Bodhi tree before the enlightenment. Mara, his enemy, wanted to fight with him, and the enemies are wearing the same kind of scale armor. This is something which is happening in the world. For example, in Sri Lankan paintings of the 19th century, you can see British soldiers holding guns against the Bodhisattva to prevent him from attaining the enlightenment. So here we have in Gandharan art, and also in this one, there is a misunderstanding. The scale should be downward, not upward, but it shows that the worst enemies of the Buddha were the worst enemies of the people of the Kushan period, for the 2nd and the 3rd century CE. And also the other interesting thing is when we look at the Kartikeya, the Skanda, as you know, he is the chief of the army of the gods, holding the cock and the shula. and he's also wearing a cataphractus. It shows the inspiration on the Gandharan Kartikya compared to Mathura Kartikya. The Kartikya from Mathura, he doesn't have a cataphractus, he doesn't wear a heavy armor, but in Gandhara, he has this heavy armor, which is quite interesting. And then how about the Indo-Parthians? So the Indo-Parthian history is quite complicated. Gondophares, the founder of the Indo-Parthian kingdom, came to power towards the end of the Aziz reign. The Aziz II inscription of a dedicatory plaque in Tatibai gives the year 26 as his regnal year and 100 as the beginning of his reign. According to the new chronology, the first year of his rule fell at the end of the first decade of the Common Era, as Aziz the first era begins, as I told you, 48 to 47 BC. So this is the time Gondophares came to power, and also we heard about his Gondophares mentioned in early Christian writing as the prince to whose court the St. Thomas, the apostle, was supposedly sent. George Huxley, who is an authority on the question, correctly points out, I quote, "Not that Thomas went to India, St. Thomas went to India in the second quarter of the first century AD, but that the author of the Acts of the Apostles knew the date of Gondophares." End of quotation. Huxley further argues that although St. Thomas' visit to India is not certain, it does not put into question the dates proposed for Gondophares' reign. These two indications, along with the debasement is reducing the proportion of silver of the coinage. It appears like silver, but it has more copper in it. Which was carried during the rule, enabled us to fix the reign of Gondophares approximately in the period of 26 to 50 CE. So when you look at the Parthian coins, the coins issued in Seistan, that is Herat area, if you followed the news yesterday, the Taliban have come to Herat by now. The coins struck there, they follow the Parthian model, like the Parthian Mithridates and others. You have a portrait on the obverse, and on the reverse you have a god seated, crowned by Nike, and the legends are disposed in this manner. So all coins found in this Herat area are of this type. And you can see here, this is a coin of one of the successors of Gondophares called Sanabaris. And here you have Basileus, Megas, Chanabaru, like that. So here we have the disposition of the legend. And when you come to Araposia and Parapamisra, then part of Gandhara, here we have the portrait, like the Indo-Greeks, like Hermaia's coins, you have a portrait, and on the reverse you have Nike, and these are bilingual. And you have seen here, the coins are only monolingual, and here the coins are bilingual. On one side the Greek, on the other side you have the Kharoshthi legend. And it's a very clear example of Gondophares with Nike holding. So you have Basileus, Soteros, Ontufaru, and then on the reverse you have Maharajasu, Gudafanisa, Tatarasa. And when you come to real Gandhara, Taxila area, then you have the continuations of the coins issued by the Scythians. Of course, the king is not wearing cataphractus, he is wearing a light dress, but he is on the horseback. And on the reverse, you have Zeus, and the coins are bilingual. This is quite interesting. And here is another one. Here you have the king on horse, light garments, but no heavy armor, crowned by the Nike. And again, somebody asked me, one of you asked me this question, whether this is Shiva. It is not Shiva. I will show you when Shiva appeared in Gandhara. And this is Poseidon, because Poseidon has a palm normally, and he has a trident. And when you come to Punjab, that means Sialkot, close to India, the coins are quite different. They follow the last Scythian king who ruled there, the Rujwala, and Gondophares issued this crude type of coins with the portrait on the obverse, and on the reverse you have Athena Alcidamas. So these are the last Indo-Greek kings who ruled there after Strato Rujula came to power. And this is the end of the Rujula, I mean, of course, the Gandhara area, sorry, the eastern Punjab area. And what Gondopharli did in Sialkot, he also issued these coins with a crude style, following the style of the style of Rujula. So in different places, Indo-Parthians issued different types of coinage, sometimes monolingual, sometimes bilingual, following the Parthian type, following the Indo-Greek type, and following the Indo-Scythian type, and also the type of Rujula. It's quite interesting to follow that. And then we come to the question of Kushan Empire. In last, 20 or 30 years, the biggest contribution was the finding of the Rabatak inscription, which was first published by Nicholas Sims Williams, and later I would refer to this one, which was published in the Bulletin of the Asia Institute. That is his recent reading of it, where we hear that for the history of the Kushan dynasty, Rabatak inscription is the most informative source on the genealogy of ancestors of Kanishka I, because it was written during the time of Kanishka. The expansion of his kingdom and the importance of Iranian and Indian divinities for his dynastic claims. The inscription records that Kanishka's great-grandfather was Kujula Kadphises. His grandfather was King Bhima Taktu, and his father was Bhima Kadphises. The revolutionary thing was we knew about Kujula Kadphises, we knew about Bhima Kadphises. Very few people knew about Bhima Taktu. So it gives controversial interpretations. First by Joe Clip saying that Bhima Taktu is Sotomegas. I'll come to that. I believed him, but later I said, no, it can't be. So here you have Kujula Kadphises, Bhima Taktu, and Bhima Kadphises, and King Kanishka himself. So it gives you a very clear genealogy. And after Kanishka, I will come to you later. So the founder of the Kushana dynasty is called Kujula Kadphises. He must have ruled between 40 to 90, because according to the Chinese annals of Huanshu, he lived very long. So maybe until the age of 90. And also when we look at the legend, it says very clearly of Kujula Kadphises, Kushan chief Yagbu, steadfast-in-law. So according to the same annals, Kushika, they invaded the kingdom of Angsi, perhaps possession of the Indo-Parthian south of the Hindu-Kush, and captured Kabul, Pushkaravati, Kashmir, and died at the age of 80. So he lived very long. And the interesting thing is, on his coinage, he is seated on this seat, the Kuril chair, a pleading chair that you find also in the tapestry on Noinullah in Mongolia. And other important evidence is that it's a direct imitation of the portrait of Augustus, the Roman emperor who, ruled 63 BC to 14 CE. Who fought against Mark Antony, as you know, the story of Julius Caesar and the Mark Antony and the Augustus. So he is imitating the portrait of Augustus. So this gives us some chronological order. So this is a coin of Sotomegas. So I think, you don't have to believe me, but this is what I think. The general to whom the Yango Zen, the Bhima Taktu, entrusted India, or the usurper whose name we may never know, may be Sotomegas. Sotomegas means it's not a name of a king, it means the great savior. It's only a title or epithet. This would explain why Sotomegas became powerful enough to push the legitimate heir to the Kushan throne to a remote area where he apparently stuck only an extremely limited series of bronze coins with his name in Kharoshti, first published by Krib and later by Harifal. The finding of large quantities of coins struck by Sotomegas from Mathura to Turkmenistan indicates that his reign was long, and that Bhima Taktu probably died of old age sometime before Sotomegas. So the interesting thing is, on the obverse, we have a radiate diadem. He looks like Mithra, the Iranian sun god. And also on the obverse, you have either Mithra or the king wearing a Phrygian cap, which is an attribute of Mitra again. So when you look at the iconography of this king, he has nothing in common with Kujula Kadphises, or nothing in common with his, Kujula Kadphis is a Kushan, and if he's Vimataktu, that means the father of Bhima Kadphises, there is no relationship. So I think he was a usurper who usurped the kingdom and ruled. I have given my arguments why he should be considered as a usurper and isolated king. So here we are. And then, and also, when we write about the history of the Kushans, I draw your attention to two hoards that I published recently. One was found in background, which had, there were 23 gold Kushan coins and 2 Roman oili deposited in a gold reliquary. So here is a reliquary, coins were inside. So I could publish all the coins, and these are the 2 Roman coins. What we did was, with my colleagues of the CNRS in Orléans, we analyzed all the coins. And we found, the hypothesis put forward by Robert Goebel is not true. He said the Kushans, the Kushans smelted the gold coins of the Romans and stuck these coins. When we did the analysis, we found out there is no resemblance at all. So the gold coins issued by the Kushans seem to come from the Badakhshan. I showed you last time where the gold is found in the Oxus River and also in Badakhshan. So it also enabled us to solve one problem. And also the other one was People Mandi. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to Peshawar when I heard the news. I went only after. I heard there were 4,000 coins, and some coins were smelted because they were found by 2 laborers, digging a foundation in Peshawar, and they took it to Bara, which is a tribal area, and most of the coins were smelted. The ones that I could see, I published them in Journal des Savants, and now the article is translated into English, and with jewelry and a lot of other things, bracelets and others. So this is where I published it. So excellent quality coins. Since I published this in 2008, these coins appear in different sale catalogs. Not only the ones that I published, also the others. You can see the number, and it enabled us to give a complete, give a good idea about different types of coinage of Bhima Kadphises. And this coin, which has a Bhima Kadphises, declaring that he is the son of Vimataktu. This coin was found in the same hoard, and of course, its authenticity was contested by Joe Cribb and Robert Bracy. And recently, Harry Falk wrote an article to prove that this is authentic. And the 2 people who contested, they have never seen the coin. It's something like making a judgment without seeing the documents. So normally we don't do that in a civilized world. So this coin is extremely important because on the obverse, you have the obverse, the bust of the bearded king, and with the legend Basileus Umo Kadphises. So we know it's a coin of Bhima. And on the reverse, it's quite interesting. We read Basileus Umo Taktu Kushano years. For the reading, I got the help from Nicholas Sims Williams, Gerard Fussman, and also Paul Bernard and all the other experts. And now it shows that Bhima Kadphises issued a coin series commemorating his father, Vimataktu. And the other interesting thing is that this is one of the earliest form of Shiva. And it is quite interesting. You have 3-headed Shiva, naked, standing, both body and head facing the viewer, holding in the right hand a Trishula, a trident, adorned with a Vajra, or the Damaru, or Parashu, the battle axe, and a Chakra, a wheel. He holds Kundika, the water pot, in his left hand. An animal skin is draped over his right hand, some traces of the Upavita, the sacred cord, passing under the right shoulder and over the chest, quite visible. So once you have these the symbols, you get puzzled, because chakra is a symbol of Vishnu. Kundika can be of Shiva, the water pot, and also can be of Brahma. Parashu is of Shiva. Trishula is, of course, the Shiva, but the Vajra is normally, if it is Vajra, it's of Indra. So, as I told you last time, there is when you look at the sculptures of the Kushana period, there is some sort of a hesitation of the mixture of different attributes of different Hindu gods in one statue, which I mean to say, the iconography is not codified according to sacred texts. Now, for example, here you have a sword, a Vajra, Shakti, and a chakra. So when you look at this was found by the Italian archaeologist. When Gnoli published it, he said this is Shiva. When Agrawala published it, it said Shiva, Vishnu, Shiva, and Indra. And then Tadei said, no, this is Skanda Kartike. But if you look very carefully, what you have is, Shiva has a sword, so it's Shiva. But it has a Vajra, but it is of Indra. And it has a Shula, not a Trishula. So if it is a Shula, it is an attribute of Skanda Kumara. And if it has a chakra, it should be of Vishnu. So who is he? He is not totally Vishnu, he is not totally Shiva, he is not totally Skanda Kumara, or Indra. So at the beginning, there is a codified iconography. And this is another one which I published, which came from Rabatak, where you have the Vajra of Indra, and then the chakra of Vishnu, and also the Sankha of Vishnu, because he's blowing into the to the conch, and also the headdress is like Indra. So this is the uncodified period of sculptures. But when you, when the time passes, this iconography becomes completely codified. I will show you some examples. So we normally date Vima cut friezes either from 100 to 127 or 105 to 127. So Vima cut friezes is quite interesting. Here we have a depiction of Shiva. Of course, he is itiphalic, as you can see. And also the other aspects, I'll come to that. The popularity of Vishnu or Bhagavata underwent a significant decline in the Greater Gandhara region during the Kushan period, when Vima Kadphises, grandson of Kujula Kadphises, the founder of the Kushan Empire, openly stated that he was a worshipper of Shiva by representing the image of the god on his coins and by fully proclaiming his profession of faith in the legend in Gandhari, written in Kharoshti, Sarvalogishvara, Lord of the whole of the earth. As you know, Ishvara, Sarvalogishvara, is an epithet of Shiva. So Harry Falk wrote, assumes that, I quote, in Indian legends, on the reverse of coins, the king assumes the title Sarvaloga, Ishvara, Maheshvara. So devotee of the Lord of the world, the great Lord. Epithet characteristic of Shiva, the question remains debated among Indologists whether the god at this stage was already called Shiva rather than Rudra, or simply Ishvara or Maheshwara. So it's quite interesting question he raises, but if you look at it, you immediately feel that it has Nandi, and he is itiphalic, and he says Upavita, and the heads. So the god is three-headed. Fourth one you can't see because it's a coin. The frontal head is beardless. The one to right, that of an old man. The one to the left of an antelope. So the divinity depicted on these coins is meant to be Shiva. He is three-headed. The head on the left appears to be that of Murga, antelope, and the one on the right is human. The head of the antelope, we can identify Shiva as Pashupati, one of the 8 forms of Shiva named Bhava. So it's quite interesting. And also when you look at some of the coins which I published, when the Shiva looks on our right-hand side, his head appears on the left-hand side, and also vice versa. You can see one head appearing on the other side. And also, I am showing you two sculptures. I'm discussing this one, which came from Banu area, which is a fully codified image of Brahma and Shiva. So Brahma, this is Shiva and this is Brahma. Brahma has three identical faces. So he has a Purusha, that is Kundika Purusha, and also he's holding the rosary, Kundika, and other attributes. But I am going to describe the Shiva because I have done this in my book from West Met East. So here you have Ithyphallic Chandrasekhar Murti, which is one of the earliest I know of Hindu iconography. So he is Ithyphallic. That Ithyphallic Shiva wearing a short dhoti like an ascetic. He's shown frontally with his right leg standing firmly on the ground and the left slightly bent. The toes of both legs of the god are placed on the palms of a female devotee emerging from the pedestal, which could be the Bhudevi or Prithvi. And then he has an Akshamala or chaplet or the rosary. And then he has a Matalunga, the citron, as you know, as a symbol of creation, as its seeds are atoms that constitute the universe. You know, the famous sculpture of the Shiva, what we call the Sadashiva or the Mahesha, which is in Elephanta. And then he has got a Trishula, a trident. Shiva holds the trident, his most important attribute, as the destroyer in the left backhand. It is also noteworthy that Trishula is adorned with a parachute, a battle axe. Right? Here is the parachute. And then he has a Kundika, the water pot, because he's an ascetic. He should have a water pot. And also on the face, on the proper right, on the right, with bulging eyes, represents the terrible and the angry manifestation of Shiva as Bhairava. And this mask was found in Pakistan in Kashmir's mask, and it gives you a good idea about the iconography. And on our right-hand side, the juvenile face to left, of course, beautiful face of the female figure, be Vamadeva, Uma, Shiva's Shakti. And you can see even the kundala, the earrings differs from one face to the other. And then the third eye on the frontal face, on the lateral right face of Shiva, symbolizes fire, with which the god periodically destroys the universe. And then, of course, we have Nandi, his vehicle. And this sculpture could be considered as one of the earliest depictions of Chandrasekhar Murti, since Chandra, the moon, is stuck up in Shiva's crown. The crescent moon symbolizes his divine power. The tiger claw attached to the necklace reminds us of the episode described in the sacred text, which rishis, wild with rage against Shiva, the seducer of their wives, discharged snakes, an Apasmara Purusha, a Parashu, a bull, a lion, and a tiger. The lion and the tiger were killed by Shiva, and their skins were worn by him as garments. The tiger claw that Shiva wears on his chest may be a token of his triumph over the wild beast. So I'll give you, chronology of the Kushan dynasty. As I told you, there are controversies about it. Something that many people accept is that Kanishka should be dated 127 to 150. Questions arise whether we should consider Sotomegas as Vimataktu or different rulers as a usurper. And also Goebel didn't agree with this chronology. He has much late chronology. So my friends from Austria have a different chronology. So what I would do is that I would invite you to read what people have written, the numismatics historians, and to make up your own mind. And the chronology that I have given is mine, and which I propose. And you don't have to agree with me because everybody doesn't accept it. So for Kanishka, apart from my colleagues from Austria, everyone agrees with the chronology proposed by Harry Falk, 127 to 150. And then Huishka is almost certain because of the inscriptional evidence, 151 to 187. And then Huishka, which is a very important coin with these corrugated ribbons or the fluttering ribbons that we see on this Gandharan sculpture. I am sure this is Huishka himself, because in a Gandhara inscription says that he was converted to Buddhism. And here is a Bodhisattva. I think it's Maitreya because he's holding the kundika, the water pot, throwing flowers to the Bodhisattva. And you can see these fluttering ribbons, which had a great impact on Sasanian coinage, which I have discussed elsewhere. And then we have Vasudeva the first, should be around 191 to 230 at least, and it's of course circa. So what is interesting on the Kushan coins is there are three types of divinities depicted. First, we have the continuation of Greek divinities like Helios, the sun god, Hephaestus, Selene, the moon goddess, Anemos, I will come to that, Heracles and Serapis. So the Heracles, of course, this is a coin of Huishka where you can see Heraclio. Heracles is a mortal who became immortal with a club in the hand, so it has no doubt about it. And then we have spoke about Serapis last time, which is a god created by the Ptolemies, which is the cult of Osiris and Apis, the bull. And you can see its inspiration on Gandhara Bodhisattva that you can see here. The Bodhisattva is definitely Maitreya, as you can see the part of the Kundika. And here you have Serapis and the torque, the tight necklace. And then we have Iranian gods with Iranian name, like Ashi, Atar, and Maha, Mitra, Mazda the victorious, and also Nana, Anahita, Vata, and Aura Mazda. So it's very complex iconography. Experts have worked on this, and this is not my expertise, I have to confess, but people have worked on this. Especially Nioli and Franz Grenet, Katsumitanabe, and others. So I want to draw your attention to this coin, which is a coin of Kanishka depicting Helios, because it is written Helios, which is Helios, the Greek name for the sun god, with the ray of sun rays around the neck. And you have the Iranian version, Miro, which is Mitra, appearing as almost the same god if you look at it, but the name is different. They have given instead of calling him Surya, they call him Miro, the Mitra. And then we have Selene, moon goddess, which is in the Hirayama collection published by Tanabe, and also Mao, which is the Iranian name for the moon goddess. Of course, she is a goddess, but here she appears as a man, which is quite interesting. And then this one was published by Tanabe, which is called Anemos, which is also considered as a wind god. And recently, just last year, I published this coin, which has the name in Iranian, which is Ovado, which is the wind god. Interestingly, there is no god called Anemos. You have Anemoi. Those are the wind gods. So there are so many like this. For example, this is a tower in Athens. You can see Acropolis behind it. So there are many names. And so Anemos is a simplified version of Anemoi. So it could be any wind god, like, we have the four directions here. So you have the Boreas, and then Notus, and then you have Zephyrus, and then you have the other ones as well. So it is a wind god. And also this beautiful coin of Kanishka, where you have the god blowing wind from the mouth. And also the impact on Gandharan art. This is Gandharan art, where you can see a god with open mouth depicted as a wind god. And then we have other Iranian goddesses like Nana here. So Nana, this one. And then we have a very interesting one, Wohumana, a four-armed king sitting on a simhasana throne with lion legs, with the legend Manobango signified that he is the son of moon. So it is a quite interesting Zoroastrian name. And then we have Vatro, and also Zoroastrian god, visible and invisible fire. You can see the fire jutting from the shoulders. And then we have Ahura Mazda the victorious, the great god in the Zoroastrian religion. And also we have Anahita, right, with the cornucopia in the hand. And then we have Indian gods as well. So we had Greek, and we have also the Iranian gods. Now we have Buddhist and Hindu. So here we have the very few coins of Buddha with the legend Buddha. And then we have Sakyamuni Buddha. And then we have Bodhisattva Maitreya, considered as a Buddha. And then we have Mahasena, which is Kartikeya, and then the Skandakumara. So here is a coin of Buddha. It's very, very, interesting to note that the engraver has not completely grasped the iconography of the Buddha. I am sure it's very difficult to say which came first. I believe the sculpture came first than the coin. So it is the same gesture that you have, holding the chivara, the overrobe, like here, and then making the mudra. And this is the chakra, which is the symbol of the Dharma chakra, misinterpreted. So here is the Buddha. And also you have Sakyamuni Buddha. And this one, which we exhibited in 2002 in Montpellier, the coin of Kanishka converted into a pendant in ancient days, which is quite interesting. And then we have Mahasena. This is a coin of Kuishka. He is holding the cock, short sword here. And this is Mahasena is Kartikeya, because he is the leader or the chief of the army of the gods. And then we have Skandakumaro is the conflation of two deities, Skanda and Kumara, both sons of Shiva. Bisago was yet another avatar of the god of avatar. So in this period, there is again some sort of ambiguity. Here, for example, there are three gods appearing for the one. You have Skandakumaro, Mahasena, and Bisago. And if you take three of them, they all define Kartikeya Skanda. So in this period, again, you can see that everything is not fully codified. That's why this period is extremely interesting. So you can see Skandakumaro was treated as one god, while Bisago, Vishaka, and Mahasena were worshipped as different deities. The only later identified with Skanda. So it's very interesting to observe these coinages and the sculptures. There is another one, a very interesting sculpture of Shiva with the four heads. We can see the one behind, and with Uma. And also you can see again Kartikeya with scale armor, like cataphractus. So here we are, Mahasena, and then Skanda Kartikeya. And also the diffusion, these are from Mogao caves in China, where you have Shiva with the wind god, and here we have Kartikeya and his other son, Ganapati or the Ganesh. And also, I was talking to you last time, perhaps I may have gone too rapidly when I talked about the Nara and the Vishnu. As I told you, as the evidence show in the coinage and also sculptural evidence, Vishnu appeared before Shiva. So for that, I showed you these coins, which were studied by my friend Wilfred Pieper, where you have Balarama Samkarshana on the Panchmark coins of the Marian series, holding the plow and the chakra and the, especially the chakra and the plow. So Balarama Samkarshana and Vasudeva Krishna. Only later on the coins of Agathocles, the Indo-Greek king, that we see a full iconography of these two Vishnu, Bhagavata, gods of the Bhagavata cult. This is Samkarshana Balarama because he has the hala, the plow, and then the musala, and against pestle. So again, we are very sure this is Samkarshana, and it is also found on the coins of Maoris. And then we have the god holding a chakra, which is of course attribute of Vishnu, and it is Krishna Vasudeva, and then the shell, the conch, then Vasudeva Krishna. So it is quite interesting to see how the Vishnu iconography started from the Panchmark, came to the Indo-Greeks and continued. And also, and interestingly, on the coins of Agathocles and Pantaleon, two Indo-Greek coins, we can see Lakshmi holding a flower, the lotus flower again. So we are still in the Bhagavata cult, as you can see in Bharut and Sanchi in a Buddhist context. At the beginning, Fouché and John Marshall thought this is Maya being bathed before the conception of the Bodhisattva, but later, of course, people corrected their opinion, and this is a very clear depiction of Lakshmi, like Gajalakshmi or Abhisheka Lakshmi, and as the coin I showed you. So we are sure that the Bhagavata cult started as early as the 3rd century BC. And then I showed you what happened during the time of the Bhima Katfisis, where he declares himself as Sarvaloka Ishvara, as a worshipper of Sarvaloka Ishvara. So the Vishnu cult started. So in this context, with the coins of Bhima Katfisis, it's almost Shiva culture came to the top. But there are two coins that which were the one was this one was in the British Museum, interpreted differently as Heracles, as Poseidon, as whatever you can imagine, and also this one was found in Kashmir's Mast, and one is in the British Museum. This one was interpreted by Devendra Handra as Rama. I have great respect for Professor Handa. It could be true, but although we can't prove it, what is sure is that this is one of the earliest depictions of an Indian soldier. So the most ancient depiction, and this is what we see in Aryan, when Alexander tried to conquer the kingdom of Porus, the bow the god holds correspond to the description given by Nearchus, the chronicler of the who accompanied Alexander into India, who noted that the bowmen had to rest the bow as tall as them on the ground and steady it with the left foot. They shot arrows almost 3 cubits long, to which no shield or armor resisted. One of the reasons why Alexander won the battle was the day before there were heavy rains in the area, and the Indian soldiers could not plant properly the bow. So they could not do the miracles with their very powerful bows. So earliest depiction, apart from the coins of Porus, is from Baja caves. You may have seen this depiction, where you can see the bow coming to the height of the soldier. It is quite interesting. So we come to this coin, which is a very interesting coin of Vishka, which one was found in Kashmir's Mast, published by Nazim Khan. And then I asked the opinion of Harry Falk about the legend. So Harry Falk read Vam Day, that means in praise of the warriors, possibly related to Vishka's extensive military expeditions. And then one is from Kashmir's Mast, other one is from the British Museum. So poor condition of the two coins led all the authors, Nazim Khan and Cribb, to be cautious in identifying the attributes, though all of them agreed to consider him as Vishnu, thanks to the conch held in front chest here. So they were correct in their identification. But the finding of this statue, which I published for the first time, helped us to understand the iconography of the coin. The god has 8 arms. Secondly, he holds a sankha in the highest pair of hands. And thirdly, he is seated behind a tree. The conch of terrific sound having the luster of the moon, and chakra, the discus with the luster of the sun, 2 of Vishnu's attributes are clearly visible. So here we have the sankha, like the one that I showed you from Ravatak. Here you have sankha held in front of the chest as if the Vishnu is blowing into the conch. So you have the same iconography here. And then we have the chakra. Again, another, arm, ayuda of Vishnu, where you can see here. And then possibly a danda, the mace. You can see only this part of it, which is also another attribute of Vishnu. If you look very carefully, the depiction of Vishnu in Allahabad Museum and also in Udayagiri in Madhya Pradesh, where you have the same type of a danda with the chakra on the other side. So I'm sure it is also, as you can see here, another attribute of Vishnu. And then, quite interestingly, this sculpture also, which I published recently, where you have Varaha, one of the earliest depictions of Varaha, zoomorphic form of Vishnu, holding the chakra and the danda. In Varaha, instead of having the face of a wild boar, the wild boar is standing in front. There are many other depictions. And so this is quite interesting. These are the earliest Gandharan sculptures of Vishnu that we know of. And also the way that the crown is treated, almost like a Taiki, a city goddess. Like on these coins, you can see the great departure, where you can see the city goddess with the towers on the shoulder and the wearing this crown, imitating the towers. And then Vishnu wears a long garland, what we call a vanamala, reaching below his knees, as seen on many Kashmiri sculptures. These are, of course, very much late. I date this sculpture to 3rd or the 4th century, and these are of the 9th century. So here is the vanamala, another aspect. The tree in front of the god deserves our attention. The species of the tree in question on the coins and of sculpture cannot be identified with certainty due to the absence of leaves. If it is a people tree, Ficus religiosa, in Latin Ashwatha in Sanskrit, there is a reference in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, I am Ashwatha, the Lord of trees. So Krishna and Vishnu, you know the reference. And then in the same Skanda Purana, where the greatness of the Ashwatha tree is described, it is said, when asleep, the powerful Lord, Vishnu, resorts to the middle of the tree and appears to drink the entire quantity of water present on the earth. It further says the water is Vishnu himself. In the form of water, Vishnu himself Vishnu himself is the great rasa, the bliss of the Jews. For this reason, Vishnu represents Chatura Matsya, holy period Matsya, the holy period of 4 months, is destructive of sins in the Skanda Purana. We are thus tempted to believe that the child emerging from the middle of the tree is Vishnu himself in the form of Krishna. If my hypothesis is correct, this is one of the earliest forms of Krishna as well, and it goes with the Balarama Samkarshana and Vasudeva Krishna of the coins of Agathocles. And then we come to this goddess, the female figure emerging from the ground, supporting the weight of Vishnu in her palms and looking at the god in adoration, is the earth goddess Bhudevi or Prithvi, the consort of Varaha. Varaha, Vishnu in one of his avatars, saved the world and saved the Bhudevi. So it's a wonderful combination in a Gandharan context, which may have inspired the coin, or the coin may have inspired. I think it's the sculpture which inspired the coin of this. So it's quite, so we are discovering new things. And also you can see another one here. I mean, of course, a later period in the Los Angeles County Museum, you can see the Prithvi or the Bhudevi emerging from the ground. And here too, this one is in the Asia Society in New York. And it's quite interesting the way the leaves are treated. They are almost like acanthus leaves, like in the Corinthian capitals. And this is, of course, Greek motif to decorate the acanthus plants to decorate the Corinthian capital. So in Gandharan art, they use this. And this is where you can see Bhudevi coming out of the earth. And also I published this sculpture, which is the descent of the Buddha at Samkasha from Trithimsa heaven, with Utpalavarna greeting him at the foot of the ladder. Utpalavarna, who became a Chakravartin and then became a nun again, a Bhikshuni again. So it's quite interesting. Again, I want to draw your attention to this. Prithvi emerging from the earth, behind you have the acanthus leaves treated like the Naga hoods. So this is it. So I'm sorry I have taken a little bit of time, but Just to tell you my last message, this is not the end of the unforeseen numismatic discoveries from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. The future belongs to young, talented historians, archaeologists, and numismatists, and this is my only wish. And I thank you very much.